do you believe conceptually, what value is there? And I know this is kind of ground level and a kicking off point. How important is marriage to a society and in a society?
So it's the foundation, right? So it's the foundation for government. And what I mean by that is, right, so in the Army, like we have this concept of like the large level units, right? The reality is what you learn in basic training is the smallest unit in the Army is the 2-man battle buddy team. It's who you can fit in that foxhole. Same thing with no matter how big and complicated society gets, the foundation is the marriage, right? If we don't honor the smallest union within society, we can't have the fortitude or the wisdom to hold together any greater, larger size element within society, whether that be a large family, whether that be a neighborhood, whether that be a community, municipality, right, or large cities, right? If we don't value the smallest foundation for union between two people, then there will be disregard for any greater and larger union beyond that.
Right.
So it's foundational in many aspects. One is if two people can't learn to love and respect each other at a certain level that's consistent and lasts, then they can't raise fruitful children. They can't contribute meaningfully to the community. And we see this on a regular basis, right? Hopefully not on a regular basis, but common enough where it's not a one-off for us. As pastors, we have a church full of families. Right. And when one family decides, whether it's a decision by the two parties involved or one party to abandon, that we're gonna disband this union. We're gonna stop this. We're gonna get what's called a divorce. It wreaks havoc on every other family they know around them. Their decision to do that starts to impact everybody who's doing life with them at some magnitude, some greater than others, but that's going to affect their family, their parents that have invested in that relationship and fostered that relationship, hopefully given them good counsel. That's going to affect the children or the grandchildren that will come later. I believe there's a minimum of 2 generations impacted by any divorce, right? Right. But the families, the couples they've done life with are going to be impacted too. I mean, the running joke is that so-and-so got me in the divorce and so I'm their friend. Like, people are stuck choosing sides. People are stuck trying to believe one person's side of the story over another. And so it creates a rift, not just in that family, in that home, and for the generations to follow there, but also laterally to everyone they touch. I can't tell you how many guys I've worked with when their marriage is in shambles, their wife is leaving them or whatever's going on, it comes to work and affects them too. Oh, absolutely. And everybody else is trying to help pick up the pieces because we know what's going on in that person's life. So the devaluing of one relationship, the deprioritizing of that one relationship impacts so many people, and we think it's about us.
Well, because it's a relationship, but marriage is a covenant. It's not just a social contract. It's not just an agreement. It is a covenant. And when you devalue that, then every other social contract that we have, will
reflect.
It's all of a sudden it's a whole lot easier to. Well, it's just a social contract. We've already broken covenants. So why is this important now? And we see the effects throughout society of we've abandoned God's way to do it. We've devalued the covenant, which was so much more than a contract.
Yeah. So what happens, and Clay, I want to come back to you, and I want you to kind of break down the theological implications, what God's design is and what that looks like. But before we do that, let's look at some more of the results of deviation from that in our culture. And I look at it and say, I think there is like you were talking about the guy who comes to work in the middle of divorce. Yeah. He didn't realize how absolutely preeminent that covenant, that relationship was until after the fact. And at that point, it wreaks havoc. And not only in our personal lives, not only in the microcosm of the family, but let's look at it culturally. So some of the things that happen is there is an increase in poverty and economic strain. Listen to this statistics. So single parent households are statistically more likely to experience poverty. very practical level. Divorce or separation often leads to lower household income, affecting children's access to education, health care, and opportunities. These are very, very practical.
Yeah.
Listen to this one. So it leads to a decline in children's well-being overall. Listen to this. Children from broken homes are at greater risk for, now here's a good list, get ready. Greater risk for emotional and behavioral issues, lower academic performance, increased anxiety, depression, and identity struggles. Not having a family that is healthy and a structure that is functional just opens the door. How about this one? Higher rates of delinquency and substance abuse. Now, these are studies and statistics that I've known for years. So there is an absolute direct correlation with the breakdown of the family.
You go